ISP.
Deixa eu apertar. Ainda não. Ah, pra trás é. Aqui. Show, obrigado. Uma boa tarde a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all those of you for being here on this Tuesday afternoon, and also I'd like to thank the organization of LACNIC for giving me this opportunity to be with you today. This afternoon, I'm going to be speaking about this topic, which is a topic that I like a lot, and I like to speak about this topic, SDWAN and cybersecurity, new opportunities for internet service providers. This engineer, and I have specialized in network security, but also like to introduce myself as a content creator because I have a YouTube channel where I share some tutorials and any information I have. So if you wish, you can check out in the QR code. I also share with you my LinkedIn profile. So I'm always available and happy to talk to you. Now, before going on to the topic of my presentation, which is SD1 and cybersecurity. But let me tell you a story about access to the internet in Brazil. A lot is said about access to the internet, and a lot is said about democratization. Now, I want to demythify this topic. That is why this is a research of Nick BR of ICTs and addresses. This shows an overview of access to the internet in Brazil, broken down by regions. As you can note here on this map, even if we consider geographical issues, socioeconomic conditions, and depending on each case, some political issues, we can see that there is a high rate of access to the internet in Brazil. I'd like to reinforce this concept even further. In the same research, Nick PR shares with us this timeline of access to the internet. You will note that in 2015, we had about 58% of the population that accessed the internet, and in 2024, this increased to 84 and 89%, depending on how this is estimated. This is quite a high percentage considering the problems that we mentioned. Now, we must also state today, and in fact we continue speaking about this, and then we continue speaking about the factors that contributed to reaching these percentages. But I would like to share with you one of the factors that I think is a very specific one and is the hero of our story. These are our regional providers. According to Anatel, the Brazilian telecommunications agency in Brazil, there is a broadband access rate in Brazil. You see right at the bottom of the graph that says other elements. And these are the regional providers who account for almost 40% of broadband access in Brazil. Of course, we must not forget to include other major companies such as Vivo and OI and others, but it is quite clear that providers are complying with their task. Very often, this has secondary effects. And when I say secondary effects, What I imply is that Brazil is one of the countries that has the largest amount of registered autonomous systems. We have higher rates than the United States. And as you can note, we have more than 11,000 companies that are internet providers in Brazil. Very often, those who see these numbers might think that the internet market in Brazil might be saturated. And I don't tend to think in that way. In fact, I think that our market is reaching what we called a maturity stage. Now, what do I mean with this? In recent years, if you paid attention, providers have focused mostly on the technical aspects in the enterprises in Brazil. We started to take fiber to the home of customs. We changed our backbone to an MPLS backbone. We enabled CDN. We enabled several links, anti-DDoS, and all that in order to provide the best internet quality as possible to our users. However, all providers somehow started to have similar products because everyone offers quality internet. So those providers that were more strategic started to change their approach. Today, providers are focusing more on improving their processes, in optimizing costs, and in increasing the customer service quality. All this so that they can stand out compared to the competition. But that is not all. There are other internet providers that embarked in other markets. They went out to seek options to make their companies grow and provide more services or services related to us. And among these new services that they started to offer, we have cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is quite a profitable and solid market in Brazil. We have this research conducted by Mortar Intelligence showing that in 2024 the cybersecurity market reached $3.34 billion, and it is expected that by 2029 this will reach $5.46 billion. Many providers can analyze this information and consider that this is quite attractive. In addition to that, some might tend to think that cybersecurity is merely a hot point because everything you see in the media looks like that. Now, this research of the World Economic Forum mapped the global risks. This study included research, for example, civil society, the governments, the enterprises. This was the outcome. This research showed that cyber insecurity at least will be in the top 4 places of this ranking. This considering other risks as hunger, pollution, wars. All these other factors will be below cyber insecurity, and this is not something that is just recent, but we see that cybersecurity will remain in the top 8 places. In Brazil, even in more rural areas, we have some companies that are already considering embarking this market. This research of telesynthesis showed us that last year the major telecoms have 10% of the cybersecurity market in Latin America. And there is a report of Fortinet showing that telecommunications, it can invest this and reach 40% of cybersecurity market.
Now, when we speak of cybersecurity, we must agree that it's a very broad field, because here there are several things where we manage to act. So first, we have to define what cybersecurity is. According to Gartner, it involves people, processes, policies, and technologies together. This is contrary to what people usually think, that they always think of technology first. So in order for the providers to make it clear, I brought some examples, including the critical infrastructures that are the companies and the businesses, the entities that are in charge of the well-being of the population. So I'm thinking of utilities companies, gas, electricity, gas, and these 4.0 are looking more increasingly connectivity between the different sites in a secure way. There we have the network security that, from my point of view, for the providers, it is highly correlated with what we are working with. We just add an additional layer of security. We have the cloud security that is providing data centers, cybersecurity to clouds, and we also have IoT security and application security. So we have several things that are, although may not be so tightly linked to ours, we can connect them with the services that we provide. I'm going to give here in network security, especially we're going to talk about SD-WAN. SD-WAN is has become very popular in recent times, and I'm saying it because the companies are migrating because of their scalability, flexibility, and reduction in costs. To more clearly understand what SD-WAN is for, how do you apply it, let me talk about the routers structure. Traditionally, our routing machines in our backbone, especially those at the highest level, usually have three planes that are operative. One is the management plane, then the control plane, and the data plane. When you access, for instance, an SSH access, and you access to the internet at home, you are working at the management plane, responsible when we configure different things. We in the case of BGP, then, or an OSPF, we are working in the control plane. We are defining where the packets are going to be sent, and after making that decision, we have the data plane that is responsible for sending and receiving the packets. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because the infrastructure in the past was based on this. But when we start talking of SD-WAN, we are going to get an abstraction of these layers. And by abstraction, I mean that in the past, when we have three operative planes in a router, now we're going to have only one, as I'm showing now. This is the general architecture that is called SDN. SDN and not SD-WAN. That one is the SDN applied to WAN. But there are no definitions, as our colleague mentioned earlier, of IETF. There's no one definition. So we're going to take SDN architecture as the base line. So it won't change much. You know that underneath our device there's only one operative plane that is for the forwarding plane. Then we, of course, we keep the control plane and the management plane, but we add the this other plane, the operational plane, and so this is in the application layer. We can speak of the change of approach in our machines, and let me mention some points that are more relevant, including cost. From the point of view of the vendor, it's much cheaper to produce machines that have only one plane, the delta plane. But in addition to that, when you remove those planes, you may have other benefits. Scalability is one of them. You see that we transfer the responsibility of the planes to third parties that are there on the slide. These entities can be, for instance, 3 separate entities, one for each plane, and one of them responsible to each, the ones that we call them the control. Now that we know the architecture, the SDN, that the architecture that will be transferred to DS1. Let me show this case. This is a traditional one. This worked very well for a long time. But however, we have intrinsic problems in the solution. What are those problems? Well, the main ones have to do with scalability and complexity. Depending as the environment grows, we needed larger and larger machines and more specialized to control the network, what often increases the network operational costs. So that is why one appeared to simplify scalability and to reduce costs in this example that I'll show you. So if you look at this, if you look at the architecture, that change is very small. We only changed the boxes. This is normal in SD1 projects. There may be cases with one single presentation, but in most cases we have to make that change. We add an additional layer. This is the control that is above there. The control will centralize the work of our machines and the accessibility of having an access box by box for execution. So with these, we simplify management. It's the management of the operational costs, and the best thing there is the statistics of the links, and based on that algorithm of SD1, it will decide through which loop the circuit it will send the flow without any humans intervening. Although this works very well, there are some challenges, at least from the point of view of the company that hires the service. This an example of the traditional SD1. The company should hire a company responsible of MPLS, another one responsible for the internet, and another one responsible for the firewalls or for the MPLS. So from NGFW. So it's 3 contracts, 3 softwares, and we also have to think whether the companies are competing against each other, because that could cause problem. So what do we need to consider from the point of view of the providers? Well, they can be responsible of the MPLS and managing the firewalls. Now, I don't have such a great capillarity as the large operators, but it's a matter of contracts. We are used to those negotiations with some companies. We just have to add this point of our portfolio. But of course, there are challenges, there are difficulties in offering these services. And from my point of view, those challenges are not so important. The providers have little know-how of the security, and when you have to protect an operator, it's very different from how to protect a company. Sales in the internet are simple. You don't need to know too much technically to execute that. However, when you are selling security, that is different. So even the pre-sales team will need to be much more knowledgeable throughout the negotiation process with the client, so that the solution that we offer will really meet the customer's needs. Of course, we have to invest a lot in our thanks to that change in mentality when approaching security. There are also benefits that come with this. For instance, capillarity of the internet providers. As we saw in this talk, the regional providers are not where the integrators are. They have clients, and the companies, sometimes they're not even aware of their existence. And And we, in recent years, as we didn't used to have such a good relations with the customer, now we try to improve that and to offer the best. And the best for the business people is it's people that now have an added value that is higher. As we offer customer service, not just an internet circuit or MPLS, we can charge a bit more for that service. And finally, from the point of view of the customer, and it is here that I want to focus, we facilitate the contract more, because in the past the customer had to deal with 3 companies and 3 legal departments, but now we offer the whole thing in just a single packet. Well, I just had to tell you this, so thank you all. And also the LACNIC, the organizers, for inviting me to come here. If you have any doubts, I'm here to answer them. Any questions for Mateus? Well, you can write, he's available in LinkedIn or in the corridors.